We still have a regular recording.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, or something, and then just make sure you never stop. Always show a slide or.
Yeah.
Don't switch to your, or stop sharing and it'll come sound. I'm at 30.
I think last week's meeting will be going down in history as the shortest meeting for CEC.
Why?
The C4E.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what the? Hey.
I'm like, are we done already?
That was a short one.
We're here for 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
I mean, it was literally
No, you're
a
sliding.
handful of slides, it was short. Because we had already done C4E prior,
Yeah.
you know,
It was
the
like a
budget
final
meeting
review.
earlier, this was kind of like.
That's why I was like,
Hang on.
show up and
Yeah.
get the report from Dr. Mike. We don't need quorum. I was like, I might as well just come be with you, and then we didn't.
Put it in this like 10-day window of when you can have it. So like, I was at the dance, I was at the senior dance for Warren, so that's where I
Were
was.
you guys able to watch them and be there?
No, but like, I went, I dropped her off and then the moms, we ate down the street, waited for them to get out and.
All right, guys, so we're gonna call the meeting to order. It is 9:12. We thought if we could just, everyone just take a look at the minutes and, we'll review the minutes, go through that part of it,
Your
approve,
name is Rhett.
and then we'll go into our agenda items and get through our morning.
Catherine's
So-
name is spelled wrong.
Okay, we'll fix it.
Also, if Sharnette's here, Patricia doesn't have to be.
Can I have, your pen, the pen?
Yeah.
Here was the K.
Oh,
KATHARINE.
it's my other identity.
I don't know if you heard me about.
Yeah, Shanette, I just took her off, yeah.
Was for not there. We just.
Got me nervous. Like, I was late.
No, you wanna know why? I wanted to make sure because it's just the first line in the top.
Yeah.
And it says, like, that's why I have this on Zoom too, just in case someone.
I hear you.
I don't. You're on this well.
That's how you
In attendance. but
Still here.
that's-
Nice by staring at the clock. Still here. Still here.
Our attendance was a little.
That's okay.
Everything else was right.
I'm usually here. I think it's.
Like, which months we're gonna be in this? June and
December we
December.
did.
December.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes. We have consensus on the minutes, everyone? Yes?
Yes.
All right.
Good.
Minutes are good to go. Okay, guys, I'm super excited to see all of you in person. I'd much rather do this than on a Zoom any day. But I know that just given the scope of everyone's schedules, even though we try to continue to pull you guys to these, to one meeting after the next, I know Zoom just becomes that much easier for us to manage multiple things at the same time. So we'll try to continue with that balance of Zoom and then at least connecting at least multiple times a year like this, because I think it's just nice to be in this space together in an in-person setting. So today, do a couple of updates and reminders. Some of those updates and reminders will be familiar to some of you and not necessarily to everyone else. We're going to talk about current state of student performance. I will say that that current state is still tentative. We still have 5 days remaining of testing. I don't believe even with those 5 days that it will change significantly in terms of outcome, but it does run the chance that it will shift a little bit plus or minus. So what I do share with you, just know it is tentative at this time. We're going to go over DCP, just quick goal revision, and then something I'd like to talk to you guys in terms of SLT recommendations that we can make as a DLT going into next year around this idea of kindness and community. It's wellness, kindness, community that we've talked about at the CEC. Part of our CEC collaboration was that perhaps we can add from a recommendation from the DLT to all of our schools to have an agenda item that's connected to those 3 areas: wellness, kindness, community, and engaging in that conversation around how are we continuing to build on that as each individual school, and then certainly from the district. I think just naming it is one thing, and we'd have to really work on defining what we mean by community. Community should seem something similar to all of us, rather than it being us making a decision on here's what we mean by community. And then it sounds something completely different from someone else across the district community. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then, if it's something that we agree that we should do, we can add it to something that we encourage our SLTs to do come the fall. That we add something in that we're talking about this at the school level and really thinking about the ways that we're doing that. And our schools are really doing a lot of this work already. I think it will be a nice way for us just to capture it and then share it more widely so that everyone learns and grows from each other. So when it's an agenda item, we have that ability to do that. We can kind of tap into it in a different way than if it's just something our schools do and no one else hears about it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then Gus is going to go into DCP template, district self-assessment, 100.11 plan, and SLT pack input for CEPs moving forward. Our high school representative was unable to join us today. I haven't heard back from our high school President's Council representative. So we'll see if she's able to join us, great. But then we'll hear from our other constituents that are here regarding any comments. And then we'll bring this school year, hard to believe, guys, this school year to a close, which is nuts. We are 2nd week of June. I don't know how we got here, but we are here already. And then I say this all the time, and then we'll blink and we'll be right back here again talking about the close of next school year. It's really the craziest thing. But without further ado, I'll go through just my agenda items. These, I talk about each time. We did just recently have our parent workshop on math. If you guys haven't seen it, I encourage you guys to take a look at it. Beth went over just the ins and outs of what Amplify is going to look like for next year. Really important. We did our virtual session for kindergarten, 1st grade, and Acadians. We have grade 2 coming this week. It's been rather nicely attended over the course of the year. Really great questions from our families too, which is a really positive thing. Says that they're really interested in knowing how to help their kids at home. And we will be doing a follow-up for iReady. Again, this is just for families that have still, for whatever reason, haven't been on or unsure about how to manage the updates in iReady for our community. So more to follow on that. We did have our civic share fair. This was really well done. We had kids from across the district participate, sharing their voice, sharing their soapbox speeches. I said this during the CEC meeting that we had our little ones as old as in our kindergarten, first grade classes talking about their soapbox speeches all the way up to the 8th grade. And it was really, really nicely done. And we are looking to continue that moving forward into next school year. As I mentioned, diagnostics end this week on the 13th. The youth leadership team. This was an amazing event. We had over 130 kids participate in this event at Adelphi University. This was all spearheaded by our students here in district. It went so well that Adelphi University has asked us to come back. And they're looking to create it as part of potentially a graduate requirement that they connect with student youth and kind of engage them in all kinds of team building activities, leadership, and so on. And I have to tell you, I said this during the CC, it was the coolest thing to watch 6th, 7th, and 8th graders go up to collegiate athletes asking for their autograph. You know, one kid after the next. They were just so impressed by what it is that they shared. That it turned out to be a really wonderful event. And the image there you'll see is one of the team building activities that are bring themselves through a hula hoop with themselves all joined together. And this particular group wound up tying themselves into a knot and couldn't figure out how to get out of the knot. But it was really, really cool. We had another one where kids were blindfolded and needed to be directed by their peer in order to get through an obstacle course. We had a dance group. We had a social worker group. Really talking to the kids about how to navigate this space of learning how to be together and build relationships, which to me is really a crucial part of our work, especially for our middle schoolers and our upper elementary. Talking about our kids having to talk with us as parents. This is the time of their lives where it's most important. You know, they're trying to figure themselves out. They're trying to figure out how to navigate relationships. And this was just a really good example of that. And looking forward to building on it as we go into next year. First in math competition, congrats 209 and 499. First in math is a statewide competition. We had 2 of our schools participate and earn recognition. And this actually resulted in the schools both receiving money for their buildings, you know, to utilize as they see fit to support math going forward. So really great work for them. Congrats to our MathCon finalists. We had 3 students from 194 go to Chicago and participate in the math competition. One of these students actually earned honorable mention, which was terrific. This is a national tournament. This is not just a one of these things that we do in a local area. This is a national tournament in Chicago. So congrats to James, Desmond, and Ritao on their work. Super excited. We also won Battle of the Boroughs for elementary schools here in Queens. So PS 24 and 185 won for the elementary school and middle school. So big shout out to both of those schools for winning. You can see that image is from the PS 24 team and their teacher, who were featured in an article in one of our local newspapers. So big shout out to them for that work. We also had a young lady from 194 that earned one of 20 spots in the Queensborough Arts Festival at Queens College. She was selected, and this at the CEC, I presented the rehearsal. I want to present to you, this is actually this is the actual event. Oops, why is this not opening? Maybe I didn't copy the link well. Hold on, we'll try this. If it doesn't work, I will repost it for you guys. But this is the actual one. I'll only play a few seconds of it, but I did want to recognize Lillian for
not supposed to stay. All mistakes I don't recognize that each shoes the same. Got a place, this patience, I'll take it more. It's not easy. I'm not like I used to be. No, it's far. Tension speeds. I'm still from the back. She's imperfect, but she tried. She didn't fall, but she lies. She didn't fall on her seat. She didn't fall. She's kind. She was almost sad. She's all fixed up and then
Just stop it there. I mean, she did a terrific job, and this take is far better than the rehearsal because you can hear it better than the rehearsal day. But it just goes to show you the skill level of some of our kids, the importance of the arts, which we do need to continue to build upon here in the district. We do amazing things, but they tend to get stuck in their own buildings. We don't get to share them widely enough. And, you know, for me, I've said throughout the year during the CEC in particular that this is something I want to expand upon. You know, creating, you know, we have these special events, these special nights, but how do we do a special night that's dedicated to the arts in a productive way? So love some recommendations from you guys on that too. So that voices like Lillian's get to be heard in a different way than just me sharing it here, and happen to have a principal that said, oh, why, just so you know, so-and-so earned this recognition at the Queensborough Festival. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had any idea that she earned that recognition. So I think creating more of an opportunity to hear that from our schools so that we can showcase it as frequently as we can, I think is all the better for our community to continue to grow through. So I just wanted to share that little bit with you before getting into our data work.
Can I just
Yeah.
wanted to say about that?
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to get up on a stage and perform at that level. But when you start kids younger with it and you provide those opportunities in the younger grades, it makes it a little easier to want to achieve things like that. And I know Principal Jill Leakey at her school monthly has a performance, an all student-led production where like the costumes are homemade and everyone in the grade is a part of putting this production together, from the props to the stage art that they put on, and even to the flyers that they hang up in the school. And it's of course it's an amateur production, but it's impressive. It's impressive the way that they put it all together. And it's something I'd love to see like in more, because it's not as hard, I think, as sometimes we think it is to get them started at a young age with exposure to some of these things in that kind of, she does a great job.
Yeah.
Confidence to be able.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and there have been examples in the past where even children that have been selected mutes, that you put them on the stage and suddenly those voices are able to open. You know, so it's about creating time and space, and all of our schools do it in their own way. But I think the more attention we put towards it, the more it grows. Like most things, it's what you value was what winds up getting done. You know, so I do think it's an area that we need to put more value in. And Monique, I know for you, you have a son that goes into this space. This is what he does. So you know, it's how do we capitalize on it with more frequency when we can. You know, part of me also wants to start digging a little bit more into grant opportunities. We had
Broadway Junior, they did Annie
Yeah.
They did great from what
Yeah.
I heard. I wasn't able to
I
make
think
it to
we
do the
were at our
performance.
meeting.
So a number of our schools do Broadway Junior. That is part of a lot of what our schools do try to get done in their buildings. That happens in many schools. But I'm even thinking about the outreach I received from the schools that we were able to support with Flushing Town Hall. The feedback that we received about the performances as the kids even got to bring in was amazing. Arts Connection, another group that we engaged in, great feedback from Arts Connection. And also Studio in a School just did a whole session with the pre-K center where they invited families in for an arts day. They got to engage in arts work with their kids. It was really, really well done. And PS20 is going to be following up with that shortly too, on it. So it's just about creating more opportunities and part of what my own next steps in that is to reach out to even Flushing Town Hall, find out what grant opportunities they have available. Because they're right here in our backyard.
Queen's Theater too.
Yeah, they're right here. There's no reason that we don't try to take advantage of it in a little bit of a different way. So that's on my kind of to-do list to start trying to tap into more of that, of those resources.
Dr. Mike, just a
Yeah.
little piece of history.
Yeah.
District 25 was known throughout the city as the arts district. And so you're following a tradition in this district. In fact, your district arts coordinator became the citywide
Yeah.
arts coordinator at
Janet,
one point. So I'm glad to see that you're going back to your, distinguished history in terms of the arts. Bravo. And collaboration with institutions is the best way to get the money.
Yeah.
Because applying on your own is always harder, but Studio in a School, the Arts Connection, all of these organizations and Flushing Town Hall, they have the ability to collaborate with you. And also remember the Queens Museum, which is, in our backyard as well. You could work with them as well. And the district has worked with all of these institutions in the past and gotten funding.
Yeah, and honestly, especially because of feedback we just received, the feedback was great. Regarding the recent shows that we were able to put on. And you think about community, even being able to do it on a large scale and invite a whole group of families out to a community event, where they're coming to see a really awesome cultural show. And we ask our schools to do it right on a monthly, or they develop their monthly calendar because it's recognition for this particular culture or that culture, and that's something that we can also try to tap into a little bit too. Maybe not with the frequency. I mean, if you look at our calendar, we've done a lot of district events already, but I think it's something that we do need to connect to a little bit more. And the more we connect at the district level, the more that schools will start connecting in that way. So, but something I do want to really dig into a little bit more as time goes on. Yeah.
So the Flushing Town Hall, Councilman Palladino had a grant writing workshop back in October, and they presented there for how to apply for their grants. But their grants do come early, like in the fall. Like their deadline, I think, is either November or December. So for the schools to be applying to it, it was something that would kind of have to be on their radar, like, for them to have the time to do it like early on in the school year where everything is crazy. But just to keep that in mind.
What I say to folks, and Rob will attest to this because I say this a lot, what's important to you, you figure a way out.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking to get the arts part of it, then I would have to make sure that we write them, and not necessarily for the school. I like opportunities even for me to say, Mr. Marino, I have this opportunity. Would you like to participate? I'd like to be able to have a little bit of control of that too. Aside from the schools being able to do it, I would like to be able to do some of that also. But yeah, I want to be able to tap into them as much as we possibly can because they're a great organization. The kids loved it. I didn't get to go to them, to the events, but the feedback we got was terrific. So
Central used to have a grants development office. They don't have it anymore. But Evelyn Johnson, who I know for many years, she is still there at Central. And she coordinates grants mostly from a fiscal point of view. But, because of her background in grants development, you might reach out to her and just put her on, put it on your radar that, on her radar, that you're interested in any arts related grants that might come her way from Central. I don't think they issue, in the Principals Weekly, they used to list grants.
Yeah,
Do they
no,
still
they
do
do.
that?
Yep.
Yeah. Evelyn, I think plays a big role in that. But, feel free to say that I suggested it. I know her a lot of years.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
what's the old adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease? So if you
That's
can,
it. I don't mind squeaking.
right,
Yeah, got money.
Yeah, so here we have a Summer Art Institute. It's hosted every summer in Frank Sinatra. It would be more towards the middle school students that are entering grades 8. So if they were 7th graders were interested, that's something that a lot of families don't know about. And it used to be at Stuyvesant many years ago, but now it's at Frank Sinatra, which is in Astoria, which isn't really a bad train ride
A bit.
over there. And they have from instrumental to voice, to theater, to film, to photography. There's a whole entire gamut of things that maybe 7th graders can apply for, because once they get into 8th grade, if they are interested in any performing schools, that would be a great summer to spend there.
Yeah, love that.
They get Metro cards to travel there and back. And I think it's just
That's something we can actually
my
message
daughter
right
did
out
many,
to
many
all
years
of the
ago.
7th grade families.
Yes,
Yeah.
so if they don't know about
Those
it, a lot of
community
people don't know.
Is it exclusive to?
Message
Ryan
out this
Theater?
opportunity, some art
Yeah, it
institutes
says,
that they can
yeah,
apply
so
for
it
at
says
after 7th grade.
entering 8th grade up to
Okay.
12. So even
Oh,
if
so
you
Ryan
have,
needs
right.
And older.
right, but I
Okay.
figure because we're mostly
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
to middle school, that's why I picked up the 7th grade, but they can continue to go as.
Yeah, I
they-
love that.
yeah.
That's something we can message directly out to all 7th grade families.
It shows the art schools want to interview. See, try to get in.
Yeah, for the
The high school
auditions and
application,
stuff
yeah.
like that, yeah.
They are.
yeah, bravo. I mean, I live right near Frank Sinatra and I didn't know that.
Yes, it hosted every summer,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they said the application window's already closed.
Yes, for
Yeah.
this year, but
Yeah, but
I
even
mean,
future-
it's the end of
future
the year
years,
for
yeah.
the future, yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
it would
that's
be a
great,
great
yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, we'll have to put that out there though. That's great. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go through a couple of things with data wise now. I'm gonna go over just a couple of quick things, that I want to mention. Oh, what happened? Okay. Around, Acadians. And then I'm gonna ask you guys to reflect on slide 14, which is this one here. It says, priority 1, end of year target. What you'll see in this column here, this is the baseline. That's where we ended the year last year. This is kind of where we are now. And then the right-hand column was the target. So remember, our goal was to improve by 10%, for some of our subgroups and 5% overall, right? Before we get there, as of now, as of today, these are just some schools that I do want to quickly shout out that were over 70% of our kids that were on or above grade level, by the end of the year. So we have Principal Specchia and staff, Principal Rosa, Principal Lee Sim, Principal Zabrowski, Principal Egan, and Principal Mahajan. All have more than 70% or more kids currently on or above grade level, according to Acadians. So big shout out to them for that. So also just take a moment and reflect on this particular slide. Give it a quick glance. It shouldn't take you that long. I didn't make this particular data set too cumbersome because we're gonna have to redo it once all of the data is in. But as of today, I wanted to give you a snapshot of where we are as a community. And the progress that we've made, albeit we did not meet the expectations of our goal. But you will see we have made a little bit of progress from last year to this. So just take a moment and reflect on that.
Overall, there was increases, just not to the level that we wanted yet.
Correct.
Okay. Zoom in a little bit. You're fine. It's just, even on the paper, it's small, so. We're just a little blind back here. It's early. Is that better?
If we could, we can just quickly go around anything that you noticed or things that you're wondering based on this snapshot.
I mean, they're all improving, so that's great, and you're a little less than halfway to the goal in
Mhm.
most categories, so
I
doing
was gonna-
something right.
I was gonna say also the jump with the SWDs so far is a nice jump.
What are you
I mean,
getting
they
at?
all are nice, but that one has a larger.
Yeah,
No, just similar, I mean, it's almost there, you know, it's kind of like, it's a jump, it's an increase, and we're close to the end, you know, of the year goal.
Rachel, anything?
Yeah, I agree with everyone else. I mean, 62% versus 64.15 is pretty much, ballpark. So I think overall, it's good progress. All of them are very close, but especially the overall.
Yes.
Well, what strikes me is your percentages are much higher than the citywide averages that I see.
But also, I believe these progress targets were purposely ambitious to try to close some gaps.
Mhm.
So while perhaps we haven't met them, they're definitely close to where we want.
Yeah, subgroups are improved more so than the overarching all students population. So there was a narrowing in that regard within some of the subgroups. Over 5% for our Ls and our students with IEPs, I think is important. The two subgroups that we still need to do, a lot more with, certainly our Hispanic learners, as well as our students with IEPs. We have done quite a bit to close a lot of that gap with our Black learners here in the district. You can see overarching 62% compared to just under 58% for the district average, which means that we've done a good job of closing that in the K-2 grades. You'll see in a minute that we still have a lot more to do for our kids in grades 3 to 8. It doesn't necessarily mirror the same thing that we see here in the early elementary, but we are trending in a positive, which I think is a really, really good thing as a district, particularly with kindergarten. Kindergarten right now has had the best year that they've had so far. And I think if we could really capitalize on that as a district community where we sustain that momentum moving up across the years and really target our first kids that are going to be going into first grade to really close some of those gaps, we're going to be all the better by the time they get into third grade. I think one of the things that we've seen, and it's something that we just have to figure out and get better at. So we'll have kids that move up, and then kids that were up move down. So it's kind of like on that, that balancing act. We grow by 10% in the group, and then the kids that shouldn't have fallen wind up going back and regressing a little bit. So it's kind of like that balancing of the supports that we provide in school, and thinking about, are we providing too many supports here and not enough for the kids that are here, which causes a little bit of that seesaw to happen. If we manage to balance, to not have to worry about that seesaw coming back, and we just keep the kids here and then build those other ones up, our performance is going to be really, really great. Certainly easier said than done, but something that we do have to focus on as a community. Yeah.
But also, I mean, it's very promising because at K-2, we all know that's the foundation, right? So we can only get better from there. And with good foundation and structure, they'll be more successful. It's going to be gradual, but they will be. I believe that. The exactly what you were saying with we focus so much on the students, and I've seen it throughout my entire children's, school career, is that not that they were super excelling, but they were always on or above grade level. And I felt like there was just a very big push for the students that were below to get them on, that sometimes the students that were on or above weren't really challenged, and they kind of were like waiting around for the other ones to catch up. And so I know as parents, we always used to ask for, things that were more challenging for the students that were on or above so that they can continue to excel. Because while they're waiting around for everyone else to catch up, and I know it sounds kind of cruel, but it's just, basically how do we, exactly what you said, still keep them on or above grade level so they're not sitting around and kind of like stagnant with the same amount. Because I feel like also students sometimes get bored, and though you have to revisit things, especially for students that are struggling, and there's disruption in the class as well, right? And I mean, like students being pulled out for sets, or students being pulled out for, L's being pulled out and then pushed in, and then you have another teacher coming in. So there's a lot of like disruptions going on in the classroom. So I'm not sure if that can really be addressed, but there's a lot of factors that go into this, I think.
Oh, of
and I
course.
think we just have to be more mindful of it. I
Yeah,
guess.
and what's one of the good things is though, kids that tend to be, in that above space, those are not the children that are falling back. It tends to be those kids that are just right on that cusp line of being on or not. Those are the ones that tend to dip a little bit more so than kids that are above grade level. Those children stay above grade level. It's about us just being mindful of that kind of that line. And what do we do in terms of support?
So it's summer and we have the summer slides. Is there, I know like some kids are going to be enrolled in Summer Rising, and that will they have an academic component to that, and that keeps those kids kind of like the elasticity going with the academic exercises. But is there maybe like a district packet of like suggested activities, books for each grade level that parents can access and utilize to work on it on their own time in their own way, so that when we come back in September, we have done some of the work during the summer at home if we weren't able to either get a seat in Summer Rising, if we're not going to be around enough to utilize it, or whatever the case.
Yeah, we can certainly make available resources, and the team has done a great job of accumulating resources over the course of time. The schools in their own way to send out, those packets. In the end, it's just a difficult thing to really manage anyone for doing it. There'll be some folks that look at that and say, yes, we're going to get our son or daughter in those books every day. And then some that'll wait till the last week and say, let's cram 40 books into a short period of time. But the short answer is yes. It's just a hard thing to legislate anyone doing.
That's
Yeah.
required, but
Yeah.
at least
Yeah,
it's
that
there.
schools make available to their community, and that's certainly something that we can have on our district site as well. Here are our resources. Just a matter of whether or not folks are going to use them. That's the hard, I say that as a parent. I wish I could tell you that I was as, as focused as I need to be as a dad during the summer. It is the summer, and sometimes it gets hard. You get but I have to, and then once you get out of that routine, it's a hard one to reestablish. So it's not an easy thing, but making materials and resources available 100%. Yeah.
To kind of go off of that, I think part of the problem is some of the students that might need that extra help in Summer Rising don't register. Parents don't register that. And then they're the ones that aren't getting that extra academic support that some of the kids that don't need it are getting also. And like they're excelling more because their parents decided to put them into the program. But I definitely know for my own children, as much as I might say, oh, look, this summer stuff was recommended, they go into camp mode and they forget about school for the summer, no matter how much I try to push or something. So like the kids block it out. It's like they don't want to know anything about it during the summer.
Yeah, I mean, we could try to do something fun and creative, perhaps, maybe like a little, book competition. I know we did that last year just to kind of promote summer reading. But, you know, for folks that choose not to register over the summers because they want to do things with their kids over the summer, you know, it doesn't always have to be in a book. It could be, I'm going to bring you to a museum. We're going to go on a trip. There's so much learning that happens there also that is really, really important. You know, so yeah, it's not the summer space is not an easy one because I don't have all 24,000 kids with me. I have, you know, Louis, what is it about that we usually get over the summer? 6,000-7,000 maybe, if that, yeah, if that across, you know, and you know, we do run into that too. We have some that register and then they'll bring their kids for 2 weeks. Which 2 weeks is better than no weeks, right? But,
And there's more
you
than
know,
one additional
yeah,
students.
yeah.
More people will.
But yeah, in short, we certainly make resources available. It's just whether or not they're gonna be used.
One of
You
the
know.
biggest slides we see is children spending 2 months only speaking their native language. Right,
Yeah.
you know, we make a lot of progress with English acquisition. And in some cases, they'll take the nicest slide and then they'll score commanding. And then they spend this whole summer speaking only their native language. They come back in September and they're commanding anything. And now we don't have the resources to even help them because we've lost funding for that. So
yeah,
there's a lot to it.
When I was sitting back here, and I was like, we should just make it that it's kind of required for every student deep down, in my opinion. And then do it with summer camp.
Well, no, this is.
No.
My
They, you
goodness.
know,
My
and then they
goodness.
still have half a day of summer, like fun, like the afternoon activities, the morning to get the academics. That's the only way we're gonna really, truly, if you think about it, take a picture of it,
Yeah.
not have kids fall behind, is if they're all fully immersed in it all year round.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As much as
listen,
I don't
I
wanna
think-
see kids
I think
stuck
that
there all summer, but.
there is.
Way to look at it.
Want to be in school the month of June.
There-
I'm done already.
I think
Same.
there's a,
I'm just June.
I think there's a
Jim
space
just
in it
doesn't
that,
anymore.
as parents, we have to take a little bit of ownership over the summer. You know, and make sure that, you know, knowing that this is the current state of what we have, that we are organizing as best we can. And when resources are accessible digitally, how do we make sure we're connecting? Because it's not a matter of access. The access is there. It's how do we create a routine? And that's the hard. The hard is creating a routine with your kids and and making sure that they know that part of your responsibility is to do that. And it's funny, last year we were on a trip with the family and, you know, my kids doing what they do, let me run for an ice cream or let me run for the soda or let me run for the slide. And then they would come back and there would be 2 children that were sitting next to me and my family. Those children were sitting there with the book open, enjoying and reading. And then I look at my kids and I would say, what do you think? And they would say, I'll be right back. I have to go get another ice cream. Right? So it's also how do we make sure that we prioritize that, you know, for our kids at the earliest of ages. If I can go back, rewind, and really promote the excitement about reading, it changes the narrative for your kids. You know, that for them, it's I want to get into the slide. I want to get into the ice cream, not I want to get into a book. And it was just so interesting watching because it wasn't just for like 15 minutes. They were like engrossed in the book.
You were in it.
They were in it.
Yeah.
They love to read. And we promote that space of loving to read, one, by making sure that our kids can. The enjoyment comes when you feel comfortable reading. You don't feel comfortable reading, then picking up that book is not as exciting. It becomes hard. Yeah. Graphic novels are great. It's a great resource though. It's a great reading material. I mean, my son, he'll pick up ESPN. Dad, he's a wise guy. Yeah, Dad, look, I'm reading. He is. It's true. He is. He can tell me any stat out there. He knows everyone who's doing what. He'll send me the text message, Dad, that's cue for me to say son, back and forth with the text, because he's gonna hit me with, did you know so-and-so is such and such? So, you know, everyone's got their own entry point. It's just about making sure that we capitalize on those entry points.
So,
Yeah.
I remember, like, as a kid, we would get a packet at the end of the year in preparation for the next grade that was like, hey, over the summer, work on this packet for next year.
Mm.
Do we still have that in some of the schools?
Did you do
or-
it the night before, the whole packet?
It's not a
My,
district,
my kids will do it the first day and get it done.
Oh.
it's not a district, delivered one. But do schools do that? Yes. But we don't have a district created packet that first graders, here's what you should be doing over the summer to be ready for grade two. Something we can think about though, you know, within the resources that are available.
It was really beneficial when
We did it
growing
for
up.
pre-K orientation,
Yeah.
going into kindergarten, we just gave them like small sheets, like, it was, we gave them a dice, and then we gave them blank little squares, and we told the parents just roll the dice, put the numbers in, and have the child like count with whatever pieces. We gave them blocks in a bag,
Activity.
and they would just,
Yeah.
and here's the shapes you should know, here's the colors you should know.
Right.
Like, it was just very simple stuff. It wasn't anything they had to,
Go crazy.
yeah, exactly. It just to prepare for the next grade. Here are some things you
Just
should
to
know.
be active.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
more than anything else, active thinking and not just taking out the video.
Never make it, you have to do this over the summer, who's gonna really force a child per se, but be there to like say, if you wanna be ready for that next year, use this for your advantage.
It's also knowledge of what the expectation's gonna be, what you're gonna be covering, instead of throwing the curriculum in September. It's kind of letting parents know, here's what we're gonna cover. So if they do wanna do their own research, or a lot of these kids also, you know, for Flushing, everyone knows, a lot of them go to these schools that specifically teach math, science, you know, and the parents pay a lot of money for it, but at least they can go with a packet and say, hey, look, this is the stuff that they're gonna be covering for my child in September.
Like a preview.
Can you,
packet.
yes, can you please, you know, assist or prepare them for it?
Yeah.
You know, just so that they, cause I believe like what you said, confidence, right? So if we know what we're expecting, and if we wanna prepare ourselves, we can. And then we're coming into the school year with confidence, because that's something that you really can't teach any child.
No.
They
It-
have
it-
to come in with it.
It grows as we
Yeah.
grow them. Hundred
Exactly.
percent. Yeah, so I've noted that, and I know that we do offer resources. I'll have to take a look and see how specific they are, grade level to grade level. I don't know that we've said a district-wide packet out. We make district resources available, but it's not necessarily a quote-unquote packet. So that's something I can certainly look into for sure. But schools do that in their own way.
Mike, a suggestion, just, you were mentioning books. Now, based on my experience with my grandson, the younger generations are very technology oriented. I mean, it's almost like comes natural to them. It's just amazing. If you could figure out a way of utilizing this interest in technology and link it to content and reading, that would be a lot more attractive than maybe picking up a book. Believe me, I love books. I'm an old book paper person, but the future is going to be more electronic. So
Yeah,
that's
I-
something to look into.
I think that there is really an important space for technology. I also think that we can't lose sight of the paperback books either. I think it's important that sometimes the digital platforms become too much. We in fact have families at times will say, can we please pump the brakes on the amount of access even in schools that they get, because they feel like they're on them a lot at home too. So I think it's a yes and,
Right.
you
Within
know,
limits,
how do we
yeah.
make sure that they sustain work outside of the technology too? You know, there's that image of a family during the holidays, and you look at the image, who's on the phone, who's on their iPhone, who's got their iPad, who's got their laptop, and no one at the table is talking and communicating because their eyes are so devoted to this tool. And honestly, I challenge anyone, you look at any place that you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a family function. How many folks are cued into this throughout the day? Even during an event where everyone's supposed to be connected, who's looking at it like this?
Yeah.
Constant. It's constant.
Especially
And-
when they're crossing the street. That's what really.
Yeah, I mean, and you know,
Scary.
even conversations, you can be in the same exact location with time to talk, and they're talking through text rather than communicating. So I think it's a yes, and I think we have to make sure that our kids stay connected to the technology because it's here. It's not going anywhere. But I also think that there's a layer of communication that we have to sustain. And part of that is being able to even just pick up a book and talk to someone about it. You know, and that includes parents, you know, that side by side, just let's pick up a book and read together. I don't think is as prevalent as it needs to be today. And I think in some cases, because of this,
I hate that thing.
because of this,
Well-
they get so glued into it that it becomes an easy thing. And listen, I'm guilty as a parent, you know, I want my iPad after the 100th time, you know, this is where I'm not like my dad. My dad would have been like, no, and that's it, no phone. Me, it's like,
Take it, leave me alone.
we can. But anyway, yes, it's a yes and, I think.
Can I?
Yeah.
Just one more idea. So growing up for me at the school that I attended, we had 5 assigned books every summer, and we just had to write our book report with the, you know, it's just simple. It was the title on index cards. So on the, and you just handed in the 5 index cards of the 5 books at the start of the school year, and that was it. Did the teachers really read every word of it? I mean, I don't know. They had a lot to go through, but it was just you were expected to hand these in when the school year started. So, and it was simple. It was just the title, the author, and everybody read the same books. The title, the author, the main characters, and a brief summary. And it was something, it was an expectation that you just, it didn't cost a lot, you know, you got the books either from the library or you bought the books and on an index card. That was it. It was simple. It was easy to do. And we'd be at the beach. Are you doing your book reports? I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But it kept us all
Just
going.
being active.
It was yeah, and it wasn't a battle between me and my, you know, 2 brothers, and they were so much worse at it than I was. But we did it, and we came back in the fall having all had kind of like the same foundation of these books, and maybe the teacher would pick one to discuss as a class in September to have like a kind of like a book club to start the year.
Yeah, so this would be something that I can bring to our principals, talk to them about, and, you know, gather some of their perspective around things, one, that they're already doing, because I do know that they organize for this. But ways that we can tap in a little bit differently to make sure that as many of our kids are connected as possible over the summer. Knowing that we can't necessarily guarantee that all of them are going to pick up books over the summer, but the more we put into that, the more we get in return. Yeah.
Good question. So I just forwarded you an email so you can look at it later, but I know there's the Institute of Reading Development through Fordham. My kids used it when they were younger. I don't know if it's something that we can maybe promote, the reading programs throughout the summer that families can sign their kids up for, and they give them the books and everything as part of the program, and it's grade appropriate for the grade they're going into.
Yeah, so some, I don't want to say all because I don't have an accounting of all, but many schools did purchase the summer reading backpack that will go home with kids. But it's not all. There's a group that we connected with, sadly, a book publishing company, and part of their work, they came to a lot of our literacy nights. And, you know, they kind of curated these these book editions. But again, it was not every school. It was schools that may have had some additional funding to do that over the summer. But it's something like what you're talking about. It does that kind of thing. All grades, K through 5.
Yeah, this goes up through 8th, so.
Yeah.
I just forwarded it so you can look at it later.
Okay. So this one, we still have to get out the survey to our kids. We'll have a summary of that in the July session. But also now going into priority 3, which is around iReady reading. Just shout out to our schools. So the goal for any student at minimum is that we get to 100% progress, which means a full year's worth of growth. What you see here is the median progress for the schools that are identified with 150% or more, which means the middle student in the school, meaning numbers wise, so we had 400 children, that means 200 or more would have made 150% growth or more during the year. So these schools, quick shout out, Principal DePolo, Principal Leakey, Principal Carter, Principal Cummings, Principal Gathers Buller, Principal LaFalace, Principal Davis Neely, Lee Sim, Bradley, Miller, Harrison, Bayonne, Friedman, Pritchard, Abbott, Mahajan, all had 150% or more typical growth. In general, our schools did great with this. I just cite 150% because I'm not going to list all 34 schools, but all of them did really, really well. These are those that were 150% or more at the middle level. for our kids, which is really great. Schools that were 60% or higher in their overarching grade level performance. Principal Swirsky, Arico, Carter, Specchia, Davis, Neely, Zabrowski, Harrison, Egan, Pritchard, Groff, and Mahajan for by the end of the year were 60% or higher for their students. And now lastly, similar to the last slide that I showed you around end of year targets, take a look at this particular slide and call out anything that you do notice.
Well, it looks like we have more work to do.
Mhm.
Especially with like multi-language learners and the SWDs. Their jump wasn't as much as you saw with the other one. We were close with the kids being on or above. And the Hispanic learners, but I feel like the rest of them, we didn't make as big of a jump as we had hoped.
It was a significant increase in Black students, 4%. That was a big jump. I think it's the largest jump in all categories.
I think all of our schools being so strict with Haggerty and foundations has given us very good outcomes when it comes to the cadence testing, but when it comes to the application of those skills, you see where there's more work to do. That's what iReady is going to give you.
Yeah, believe to what you just said, the overall percentages are lower at the upper grade level. Fine. Here.
Is this data include those that were included in the sprints program?
It doesn't break apart the, this isn't disaggregated by that. I can do that actually. So we can see the kids that participated in the sprint versus those that didn't. And what impact it may have had. That I can certainly do. Sure. But that I don't have that off the top of my head.
Just wondered how beneficial that.
Yeah. So what I do anticipate, given this, what I am hopeful is that we will be over the 60% overall on the New York State. That's what I'm hopeful for. We were just on the 63% 2 years ago. Last year, we did have a drop. Goal is that we do build back up, and I do believe that we'll wind up getting there based on the percentages that we see here. For a number of our grades, we tend to outperform what iReady states. If that pattern continues, then we should be able to see that moving forward here. We did see fewer children in that were multiple grade levels below standard this year as compared to last. More children in that one grade level below bucket than were in the years past. So we've seen a positive trend, but not necessarily to the same as what we saw for K-2. K-2 certainly more significant right now.
Could it be maybe that iReady is like less of an effective assessment tool than maybe Acadians is, or Acadians is more aligned with the curriculum, or?
Cadence it's definitely administrative.
Okay.
Person is doing it versus.
Oh, right, it's the
child on
teacher,
computer.
yeah. Right,
So
because then
that
there's,
has its pluses and minuses as well,
Right.
the subjectivity of it. But again, with the iReady, you're assessing like comprehension and vocabulary and skills that you're going to use once you've gained those language skills. And the lower grades, Acadians, you're just really seeing how well they're doing based on the work they're doing with language, which is what we do in Haggerty and Foundations. So we're seeing everybody's seeing a lot of growth with Acadians, and then you get to iReady and there's more work to be done, especially with L's, especially with the L's.
Yeah, and that going from that place of learning to read to reading to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
That transition between kids being able to decode, which the decoding, as you guys saw during, I want to say 3 months ago, when I had shared with you, our L's ability to decode has increased by about 20% from where we were, last year. So it's going to that space of transfer from their ability to decode and doing it fluidly across the page, so that they can hold on to the text. When we read something in a choppy way, what do we do as readers? Go back and reread it and reread it. Problem is when you're a kid and you have to keep doing that, that's not a fun game to play, So there is more work that we do need to do here, but I'm encouraged with some of the progress that we are seeing, even though it's not as significant as K-2. I do think that we're going to see, and knock all the pieces of wood, I do think we're going to see more of a positive trend on the state exam this year than we did last. So that's my hope.
I think that the school-wide or the district-wide use of decodable texts, which when you're learning in foundations, with the skill that you're learning in foundations, doesn't always translate to what you're doing in HMH, like the literacy lesson. The decodable text is a bridge from that phonics lesson. You get to now take those phonics skills and use them in the decodable text and feel great about the fact that you could read this book, even if it's on a very low level. And then when you go to your literacy lesson, you're not feeling defeated that I just learned all this work and none of it is being applied to this. So I'm encouraged that with the use of decodable text, and the district has been very, very strongly encouraging that we all use that. We'll start closing that gap.
And that ends in second grade, decodable text.
From
No.
kindergarten. Oh, no, does it end? No, we have them in third grade too. Yeah.
Through things that we've encouraged across grades.
Yeah.
Just making sure that the decodable is not so kindergarten oriented when you're an upper grade student.
Yeah.
So it looks different for an upper grade elementary student versus a kindergartner that might be needing the same skill.
Right. We have like the dynamite code.
So they range in terms of support in the
But as
It's
part
part-
of like the regular classroom curriculum,
So
they,
it's still part, so for our Ls in particular, we have standalone time where they do build in a structured approach to decodables. The further away we get from kindergarten, the fewer opportunities that they have for decodables, which is why we've kind of asked that our schools, particularly for kids that are struggling. You're a struggling reader and you're having a hard time with comprehension, just giving kids comprehension strategies is not going to allow them to magically be able to read the text. So part of that is more work in terms of foundational reading skills, but as a builder up towards. So part of that is in the decodable text. So we do have kids, even in upper grades, practicing with these tools.
Yeah.
To help build that confidence. You just get here in 5th and 6th grade and you don't know the language and you don't know how to read. We still have to build language, which we're doing inside of complex text, right? Because it's the balance between the two. One, we have to have exposure to real rich text, but two, on the other side of that, build the muscle so that when they're looking at text for the first time, they know how to attack it. And that's the challenge.
Yeah.
For both children that are Ls and children that are currently struggling readers, whether they're a student with IEPs or just a child that's does not have an IEP, just struggling to read.
but as a standard part of the curriculum, like as a standard part of like the ELA block in the morning, it goes past second grade, like,
So-
or it ends when foundation ends.
So
unless you
foundations
need
goes
extra
into
support.
grade 3. So
Right, oh,
foundations in
great,
grade 3.
okay,
There are other programs like phonics for reading, which is another program where it's more geared toward upper elementary school than it is K-2. So schools will utilize that to build phonics work for kids in grades 3 and up. There's another program called Just Words, which our schools will use for kids that are struggling in the upper grades in middle school, also to build foundational skills. So that's all part of expectation that we're utilizing resources to meet kids where they are. So yes, that is part of what schools are asked to do.
Our school was departmentalized in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, which made it challenging in 3rd grade to have that instructional block. So for the first year, we're getting rid of departmentalization in 3rd grade so we can have the instructional block, which will include
Okay.
foundations in 3rd grade, moving into the literacy So we have those 3 solid periods. Because that's where the children need the most help.
Yeah, to be able to transition to reading and marking.
Especially in a school where we're 56% Ls. There's
Yeah.
probably another 40% on top of that were once Ls. They need that language assistance.
Yeah, and our biggest area that we need to focus on moving forward is that we kind of on this little bit of a roller coaster, as a district where performance 3rd grade, and then we start seeing a little bit of a dip 4th grade, 5th grade, and then we start heading on the incline again. And by the time they leave us, our kids tend to be performing at their highest of rates, which is what you want, right? You want kids to be leaving us as equipped for high school as possible. So for us, when we're on this downward space after 3rd grade, is how do we make sure that we're not doing this type of a drop, right? That we're kind of making sure that that whole space of comprehension with those layers of text, kids can hold on to, so that we're not seeing this kind of a dip. We're seeing maybe like one of these and right back up. And that typically happens in grade 3. So grade 3, we wind up seeing the highest of performance on state, except for last year, first year ever, where we did not perform well in grade 3. First year ever.
It was first digital year, right?
I'm expecting,
They went-
it was not the only year. I think they had access to it the previous year too, just not to the degree.
Okay.
It was a rough cohort.
So third grade, for whatever reason,
Great right now to begin with, because they came into kindergarten.
but it wasn't necessarily the,
It's COVID.
but it wasn't necessarily the grade, because I already didn't say how they performed. I already said they were going to perform in the mid-60s, which has been typical when I-ready assessment says that. We've been aligned relatively, and if we weren't aligned, we were higher. We were never lower. So last year was the first year that happened. This year's 3rd grade is performing higher than last year's 3rd grade, in the mid-60s, for our 3rd graders on I-ready on or above. The hope is that whatever happened last year doesn't happen again, because last year we were in the 60s and we wound up performing just over 50 in 3rd grade, unlike anything that we've experienced before. And you have an entire grade level that performs 10+% lower than they typically do. We wound up dropping by a couple of percent overall as a district community because of that. So the hope is that the work that we put in will hopefully not follow that same track, where the performance levels that we think we're going to receive are not
That was
such.
last year's 3rd grade. So
Last year's. This year's 3rd grade is actually performing higher than where they had last year.
5th grade, they're arriving 5th graders.
Yeah.
Okay,
Next year, there will be 5th grade, yeah.
okay.
And this year's 4th grade, a smidge higher than where they would have performed last year's 4th grade. So there is that correlation. The problem is that we start seeing, regardless of cohort, some of our 4th graders wind up dropping from where they were the previous year. So it's how do we make sure that we find that balance between new content, the text gets harder. Are they ready to match the rigors of the new levels of text that come in? And that's a challenge that we have as a district community to reach. More than anything else is seeing where we have kids performing here. Why do we see a little bit of a decline? Some of that is we get new kids too. It's not just that we have the same group. Some of the cohorts change a little bit. We have new kids coming into the 4th grade that will be testing for the first time. And those things also add to it. But in large part, it's how do we make sure that we don't see this kind of a trajectory from 3rd grade where we have to come down here to come back up. It's kind of, we level that part off and get more of our kids here. Then the goal is that by the time they leave 8th grade, they're even at a better rate than what we're at. 8th grade typically leaves us higher than where we started, which is what we want. I just don't like the roller coaster. I don't like the peaks and valleys of that space. So that's something that we are working on for sure. But I like the idea that we didn't stay the same. I like that we did grow a little. It was not the growth that I wanted, but it is growth. So give me the side of growth versus the side of decline any day. And knowing that we still have more to do.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So, the overall students, I noticed like it was at 52 and then the goal was 57,
Mhm.
right? But in all the other categories, your goals were all 10% above.
Yep.
Was there like a reason why that specific for overall was less than the 10% expectation? So instead of you having 62, you have 57. So is there any specific reason
So
why?
just alignment with end date. So, the previous goal, our end data from last year was at 59 plus.
Okay.
So it's kind of a matcher of where we were the previous year with
Okay.
goal to strive towards. So typically, historical data has shown that we grow by max a couple of percent. Ideally, I want to strive to push beyond that. You know, just thinking wise, mindset wise, we have to continue to push beyond the regular space of, you know, of a 3%, which is why the others are 10. It's very aspirational. You know, the goal from I want to put a stamp at 100%, but 100% is not necessarily realistic given trends over time. Trends over time don't say that we're going to reach, you know, more than a couple of percent. But my goal is to create the mindset that we're striving towards as high a percent as we possibly can for any of our subgroups, so that, you know, we're closing those gaps. The reason why our subgroups are higher than the overall all students is to try to close those achievement gaps. And in a number of cases, not all, we have seen that some of the subgroups have outperformed in terms of growth the overall all students. And some of that's because the number of kids. When you only have 800 Black learners in a district, moving a handful of our Black learners changes the percentage significantly than when you're thinking about 24,000 kids. You know, so but that's why the numbers are what they are. Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah.
Just want to remind everyone that what counts from the point of view of accountability, the state, is the state exam. That's how schools get identified. That's how districts are evaluated, et cetera. All of this data is wonderful, but they're predictors.
Yeah.
And I was very much impressed by what Mike just said, that the prediction indicates in District 25, at least, that you're exceeding the expectation on the state test. That's a very good thing, because the challenge I always find is whether the predictor is really a true predictor when the state exam is actually taken. But always, you know, keep in mind the state exam, and the comparisons from one year to the next should also take into account the growth and the comparison between and I've heard it for many years. They're not the same kids, Gus. You know, it's a different population, et cetera. I understand that that's just the nature of the way the state measures everything. So, you know, it's my responsibility to remind everybody about state accountability. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, listen, these are all measuring stick things. The goal is that we're getting 100% of our kids on our grade level. That's what the goal is. You know, we're going to continue to work towards that end. And, you know, it's not all grades, but, you know, there 4 of the grade 3 of the 6 grades, we see outperformance. You know, we outperform already. Last year, and the reason why I take grade 3 out is last year that wasn't so. Previous years was so. Last year it wasn't. So I'm hoping that we break that mold. It doesn't become a pattern where we feel really good about a 3rd grade that doesn't live up to the space that you thought it might be. So, but at any rate, you know, we're still moving. Now, math, quick shout outs, and we have a lot of shout outs in math. The median typical growth call outs will be 132% because that's the average for the district. Principal Singh and staff, Principal Carter, Principal LaFalace, Lee Sim, Leong, Bradley, Miller, Friedman, Groff, Abbott, Witherspoon, Mahajan over that 132% median growth mark. Schools that also were over 60%. Well, I didn't put the over 60% here. Over 60% on the iReady math. Swirsky, Meyer, Singh, DePolo, Erico, Carter, Marino, Specchia, Marsaggi, Davis, Neely, Rosa, Lee Sim, Leung, Zabrowski, Egan, Friedman, Pritchard, Groff, Abbott, and Mahajan. All over that 60% mark for end year, at least at this point now. So big shout outs to them. And here's what you will see in terms of overarching performance in mathematics. Again, still more kids to test, but this is where we are current state. So if you want to just take a quick look at iReady math performance.
Definitely a nice jump from all levels.
This is just elementary or it's all the way up to
This is
eight?
3 through 8.
This is three through.
Three
okay,
through 8,
Three
yep.
through 8, okay.
You know, while what's nice to see is that math is never ignored, but it
Mhm.
hasn't been a laser focus.
Mhm.
So to see this is encouraging, and I can only imagine once we really kick it into a higher gear, the progress we'll see.
Yeah, math team of one is very excited. And
It's
Beth
so
Eaton,
neat.
she's very, very excited over the progress that math has made this year. And again, you know, this is just current state. You know, we certainly hope to see a positive return on a state exam, but we have seen some progress in mathematics this year, no doubt. But even within the progress, there's still a lot for us to do, right? There's still plenty of headway that we do need to make, but I was happy to see that we've made, you know, upwards of 3% change overall, 6-7% depending on subgroup, which is a positive trend, rather than one that is on the negative side. Now, I'm hopeful that given the current state of where we are, we tend to also outperform iReady on the state exam. Last year, around 67, just under 68% in math. I'm hopeful with the 3% change. I'm hopeful that we even see a much more elevated return on that on the state exam, and would love to see us topple 70%. Don't know that will happen. I'm hopeful that it will. And including our one grade that typically is one we have to come back on is grade 8. And grade 8, for the biggest reason, is we have 1,400 children that take the Regents and they don't take the state exam.
Right.
So our performance in grade 8 tends to be has been under around 40% for all of the children that are taking just the state exam. This year, we're about 6% higher than we were last year with iReady for children not taking the Regents. So we're seeing some progress across all grade levels when it comes to math right now. And I'm hopeful that our kids taking the Regents are going to score higher than they had in the past as well. We had mid to upper 70s of our kids that were performing the high average on the MAP assessment, which is terrific. They are still finishing up their end year assessment, so I can't give you that data yet, but I will share that with you too. But it looks promising right now for mathematics.
What diagnostic tool for math is used for K-2?
It's iReady as well. iReady is used for math. I can give you the breakdown for that. I do 3 to 8 only because of the state accountability space. But I can break that apart too, so that you can see that we have some of our kids in kindergarten. It's really pretty high. So that I can break down. I can break that down for you guys next time. Sure. Any other questions, comments about
Your,
math?
your MLL percentage is close to the other two subgroups, which is impressive.
Yeah, no, the L's in math typically perform pretty well. Language is not as much of a barrier in mathematics as it is speaking the English language. You know, there are certain things that are consistent mathematically in other languages. When you look at a problem, you're able to solve differently than looking at, you know, a piece of text that you can't decipher. So our math for our ELs typically performs at a higher rate. Assessments are also available in their own language, their native language, if necessary. That's only good if a child can read in their native language as well. There's a presumption sometimes that just because a kid is Spanish speaking or Chinese speaking, that they can read the text in that language. It doesn't mean that. It's a resource, but it doesn't always mean that. But we tend to perform better in math for our multilingual learners than we do in reading. But it is an improvement. I like to be on the side of improving rather than not. And we'll see what winds up happening when we get results back later in the summer, hopefully later in the summer. That I did already. This one we're gonna go over in a second. Chronic absenteeism. We met for some of our groups, not for all. So just take a moment to review our current data. Remember, middle column is where we started. That says baseline, end year target, and then end of year as of June 6th. So we still have a little bit to go. But it shouldn't vary too much from this. And the goal is to reduce 4%, guys, for every group. They're really comparing the baseline to the end of year, the middle on the right column.
Great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Society, something,
Yeah, we did make a lot of movement. We're second in the city in terms of overall attendance, daily attendance. We're at 94.3%. And we're second best in terms of chronic absenteeism rates. So our kids are coming to school more frequently than most districts in New York City. So a lot to be proud of there. Schools work really, really hard, making sure that they're there to support their kids, to get them in schools, in our schools every day. But even saying that, and I don't let things linger too long without me saying the but in any of this work. When we have a group that's been out, that 30% of a group is out with the frequency that they're out, it's huge. It's huge. When you have 30% of a subgroup we're trying to really move is chronically out, it is really, really important that we continue to work towards improving that. And there's so many variables. We've gone over this so many times as a group, so many variables that play a role here, from illness to, ill-timed vacation plans to, I need to keep them home because my other one's sick and then I won't have, someone to care for. There's so many variables that play a role into this. It's not just one, which makes chronic absenteeism a national problem, not a District 25 problem. It's a national one.
Is there a reason though why, let's say, like Hispanic learners and Black learners seem to be the higher level of absenteeism?
The reasons why?
Is there, have we figured anything out there?
It varies. It varies.
That's also the largest amount of the ethnicity between the Black and Hispanic. Those are the groups that are mostly students in temporary households. And when
Yeah, I think it ranges from
being doubled up.
Yeah, there's so many things, so many variables.
It falls along
So many variables.
economic lines.
Yeah, there's no single thing, and that's why it's hard. There's no single thing that says this is why. Every family circumstance is to itself a cause of this. There's no one thing that says this is why Mike has been out for 18 plus days, which is what makes it hard for the schools. Tons of outreach, tons of support, Sometimes too much support, too much outreach, so there are lots of things that go into this, but I think for us to really reach our ultimate goals, we have to get better at this, as communities. We
I
just do.
understand that sometimes we talk about, like the wording of the letters,
Mhm.
sometimes even like re-looking at that, like
Yeah.
the outreach specifically. Cause I
Yeah.
know, like, I gave an example of my daughter had 8 absences in the year or whatever, and she got the "you're at risk" letter, and she panicked more than I did, and I was like, listen, I know you're on grade level, like, you're doing fine, like, but she panicked, and like, the emotional toll it took on her was very different than even like my reaction as a parent. So it affects the kids in a specific way even.
It could be
Yeah.
too, like health related concerns, like
Yeah.
that's also the group that has high rate of asthma. and
That's a
then
huge
during-
one.
Yes.
Asthmatic concerns is a huge one, and, part of it, and sometimes families don't realize that a plan can be established to support a child that is asthmatic. And that only goes so far. I mean, I was, as a teacher, I had a young lady, she graduated in 7th grade, and she didn't make it home in time. She didn't have her inhaler, and she wound up losing her life. Did not have her inhaler. So there is a real space for a parent to, it's cold out, it's gonna affect their lung capacity. I'm not sending them, right? So it's how do we make sure that between parent, school, home, there is this understanding about what we do, what's the plan, when. Because it just doesn't mean if you're asthmatic that you can't come to school. It means we have to have a real clear plan so that concern is as alleviated as possible. Because that parent, didn't let that kid go to school that day thinking she'd never come home again. But that was the reality, so.
My middle has asthma and is there maybe for those parents that have that kind of concern? It's not severe, she's not a severe case of it, but for those parents that have that kind of concern that they're not maybe sending them on account of like the weather is affecting them, what kind of outreach is doing specifically to asthmatic cases to let them know that, in that.
It's all part of that. If that becomes something that a parent shares as the reason why they're struggling, then it's working with the nurse, school staff to establish a support plan. What is that gonna look like, sound like, and feel like for any child? So that's something that all schools have the capacity to do.
But that would be a proactive on the parents' part versus
Provided that the
proactive
parent
on,
is
like,
being,
the medical.
making everyone aware of what the concerns are.
Okay,
And it's also your accessibility to really good healthcare, right?
yeah,
Because for me, I was an advocate for my child, but I had excellent doctors, I had an excellent diabetic nurse educator, and they laid everything out for me. When I was in a school, I had a little boy who came in, type 1 diabetes, that parent, you can tell, did not have great access to medical care. And so you can see the difference, right, in the learning and things like that. So not everyone is afforded that opportunity, right? And so it's just something that we have to be mindful of. A lot of parents come in, they don't understand that they don't know about a 504 form. So if your physician doesn't tell you that you can get a 504 form and that you need to come in before school starts to sit with the nurse, things like that, you're not an educated parent, not because of yourself, but when you're tasked with, when you are confronted and you have a child now all of a sudden with a disability or a medical need, you have to make sure that you're surrounded by people who are going to tell you. Same thing with students with disabilities, right? If you have a child who has autism, you're going to do your research, right? And you make sure that you're surrounded, but not everybody has that, right?
Yeah, and
Right.
that's the part of the teams being able to connect with
Right.
our parents that
Right.
is so crucial, of making sure that there is that awareness and that relationship built where a parent can say to you, here is where my struggle is. Not every parent is as forthcoming with that because, there are lots of variables in that too. I don't want the school to know that I'm struggling with this, and then they don't share, and then it's hard to support. So there are lots of things. That's why I'm saying it's not just one thing
Yeah.
that causes it. There's many.
if we know that the child struggles health-wise, like, is there, like, maybe a way for the nurse to be the person in charge of making the connection with the family in a confidential way that helps support them to be able to develop all those different pathways that they know that they are going to be okay in
So
school.
kids that have any kind of diagnosis, the nurse is typically informed, provided that the parent has shared that. You know, but as long as a parent shares with us that there is a condition, now it won't necessarily be the nurse's quote unquote responsibility to do all of the things. It's part of leadership too. So it's
Okay.
a collaboration
yeah.
between leaders. So as a principal, I knew everyone that needed it, had an EpiPen. I knew everyone that had, you know, asthmatic conditions because it was part of, I needed to know that. You know, if kids were going to leave my building, I needed to know, all right, who's prepared with X, Y, and Z to make sure if there was any kind of a medical concern that there was access. So all of that is provided that we have the information, we can make those supports. But if we don't have it, it's hard to do that. Yeah. Yeah. So guys, we're running so long, and I love this, by the way, because we're all engaging in this conversation. So cool. But at the same time, we're almost at time, and I haven't shut up yet without my own part. We still have Gus and then all the constituents to go through. So the last part about today that I just wanted to go through. In one of the things that came up during the CEC meeting was around this idea of creating these supporting activities for promoting community in our schools. And they do a great job of promoting community in our buildings across the district. But what came up was making a recommendation from us as a DLT to all of our schools to have an SLT agenda item that's devoted to this idea of promoting wellness, promoting kindness, promoting community. Can we take a quick pulse of what you guys think about adding something like that to our SLTs as we go into next year? And then maybe part of our SLT meeting that we have in October would be dedicated to having space where parents can see, where teachers can see, what else can we do, where maybe we have even some of our schools present some of the great things that they're doing to spur on some thoughts around community in our buildings. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it's great. It's hard to define. You have to define these things.
Yeah,
Say,
100%.
like, promote kindness. It's such a general, subjective thing. To really put your finger on the things that children should be doing or not doing to be considered kind is, you know, something as simple as like when you notice, children notice everything, right? So if you notice something about someone and it can't be changed in, let's say, you know, a few minutes, you shouldn't really talk about that thing, right? Just this morning, I cut myself shaving, and one of the teachers was like, "Oh, Mr. Marino, you got a little red." So I was like, "Okay." I was able to kind of fix that, but she said, "I see you've gained about 5 pounds." That would not have been, that would have been true, but not nice.
You look
right?
great, though. You look great. You look great.
Thanks.
So aside from the defining, because we have to do that, I think
Yeah.
we can do that after we can come to an agreement. Do we think that maybe, do you think it's a good idea to kind of create this as an agenda item, provided that we come up with all of the backstory
Very
around
important.
what we do?
Very important.
Yes?
With the chair, I'm definitely, obviously in agreement with it. I know, like, it's a thing for the CEC from base that we really have to put a focus on something, and that's where that came from. So, like, we feel very strongly about it. I know one member in particular is very adamant about this stuff, so I think it's something very important to, like, promote with the kids. So from the conversations we've had at the CEC, it's forefront and, like, top of mind, especially with more recent events
Yeah.
in schools and things like that have happened, so.
Yeah. Catherine, thoughts?
I think it's teaching more of an encouraging and supportive attitude towards our peers in the classroom versus a critical stance. Just learning how to make more of a positive commentary versus a criticizing one.
So, but you're good with adding it as an SLT item?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Monique?
with adding it as a SLT.
Cool. Rachel, yes? Okay, yeah, and I think so too. I think it's a nice thing. And then during the July meeting, perhaps we can come prepared thinking about, and I challenge the CEC members on this too, to really think about what would we want that to actually look like, sound like, feel like. When we think about community, what do we think about, even when you walk into a school? What do you want to feel as soon as you walk in? And do we feel that way when we walk into all of our schools?
And I also think maybe like PTA kind of those constituents, because I think we could all say what we would want to see, right? What would make us feel that way? But what really makes families feel that way when they walk into a school building, like getting feedback from some of the parents through maybe the PTAs and saying, what is it about the school here that makes you feel that they're welcomed, or that there's kindness, or that you're part of a
Love it.
community? Like,
And I think if we add it as an agenda item, this conversation, if we can create maybe even the questions, like lead-in questions, here are the questions that we would want to ask at an SLT, so that parents, teachers, building leaders are all part of it. And we say, well, these are the things that we actually have present. Here's what can make it even better, right? Here's an even better if type of space when you come into the school. This is how you should feel.
To your point, it really starts with the adults, right? For years, I've worked in school systems, and we've had programs where we've insisted on children being nice and kind and not rude, and I've worked at all grade levels. But when we walk that walk, then children tend to follow suit. Like when we were doing ruler as a district, every meeting was a mood meter check-in, right? Every constituency had a charter of how we wanted to feel. And I felt that really trickled down well into the classroom. At that moment, we had a lot of buy-in because the children saw the adults doing it too. We were kind to each other. So I thought that was like a high point when ruler was the thing. You know, I've been advocating in the sidelines for that.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna include this. This is gonna be something I share with principals, get some of their feedback, but I think part of our expectation moving forward could be that we establish this recommendation for all schools to include a wellness, kindness, community agenda item on a monthly basis, to support this ongoing conversation, around building it across our schools. Okay, I'm gonna bring my component to a close because we're getting very close to the end and we still have a lot of people to speak. So we're gonna do this in Micro Machines commercial wise. Gus,
Okay,
I turn it over
I'm
to you.
gonna try to be quick.
Micro machine style.
As,
Are you done?
as you can see, on the agenda, what I'm doing is I'm giving you updates. So, I'm not extensively talking about anything. I'm just telling you where things are. I had hoped to have the DCP template by now. I do not. It is, supposed to be, issued any day now, maybe today. There's a meeting taking place with Central, with my team this morning. I'm not on it. I'm going to listen to the recording, and maybe they announced when, you know, it's going to be released. But it has not appeared yet. One thing from the last Monday meeting that I did attend that they mentioned, which was the reason why it might have been slowed down a little bit, is they're redoing the MTSS section. There was a citywide survey done of intervention programs in terms of effectiveness. And what Central has determined is that there are about 10, don't hold me to the number, that they think are particularly effective. And the way it's going to be designed is that districts and schools are going to be asked. Now, probably most schools are using the most effective programs anyway, but they're retooling that to be able to make that change in district-wide plans. Also, there's going to be a screener in terms of how effective those programs are. So those are two pieces that are being changed in the DCP. There's also going to be a section on professional development. I know that action plans traditionally contain professional development, but my understanding is it's going to be broken out into a separate section. Now, everything that I say is preliminary because until you actually see the document, folks, you know, this is just based on discussions that I was part of. And because it hasn't come out yet, I expect that the deadline is going to be adjusted. The whole timeline is going to be adjusted. There is on the agenda, you see the district self-assessment. That's basically just a reminder there is a district self-assessment piece, which is separate. It's not part of iPlan. It's not part of the template. It's a separate piece that superintendents get. And I'm told that there's something called the superintendent's dashboard that I think it appears in. So that's a separate piece. You're familiar with it because I think it was the same last year. But they put it on the agenda and they asked us to just mention it in passing. Now, I was a little surprised, but they added the district 100.11 plan. You see the sheet here. Just for those of you who may not be sure what the 100.11 plan is, every other year, Central through FACE does a survey of all SLTs. And all SLT members, it's anonymous, they get a chance to give input based on the questions in the survey about the effectiveness of their SLT and suggestions for improvement. I like to call it checking on SLT health, kind of citywide. So that survey will be coming. It should have been done this year, but it wasn't. So the assumption is that it'll be done next year. And in preparation for that, they asked us to give this out so you could look at the questions. You see the questions that are asked in the back here, and it explains what they are. They want the DLTs to think about those questions. Now, the 100.11 plan is how does the district help SLTs be more effective and provide training and meet their needs. The current plan is available to all of you on iPlan. It's at the very end of your current DCEP. So if you go, and that's available publicly, you don't need to log in. You can download it if you want to, and you can see it. So they wanted you to think towards, next year, look at these questions, think about the plan and how we can support SLTs. Actually, before even the survey comes out, we do SLT training every year. It's been last couple of years been done online. We can always improve that training, and we can always do as many trainings as you want. For me, I know that we have lots of participation for others on that training, but I always participate. And for me, I'm always willing to do training at any given time for SLTs and schools as a whole. So that's the 100.11 plan. If you have any questions, please ask them or email them to the district and they'll pass them on. CEP, the timeline for the CEP, just to let everybody know, I've given this out several times, did not give it out. I think it was part of last month's meeting. June 27th is when schools are supposed to have the draft. As I indicated, and I do on an ongoing basis, and CSA, I hope, knows how we handle things in District 25 and in Queens North as a whole. Any principal, any school can contact me at any time they need assistance on any aspect of the CEP, whether it's technical, if it's about goals or numbers or percentages, I refer them to the district because those are content issues. But if anything in terms of the template or any other part of it, I'm happy to help, and I try to give as much assistance and support as I can. If I don't know the answer, I will give an answer. If schools want a more formal structure, we can do a more formal structure to assist groups of schools, subsets of schools, individual schools, or what have you. That's the way it's been done, and I'm proud of our record that we're always getting in our CEPs on time and meeting all the deadlines, and everybody in District 25 does an excellent job. By the 11th, as principals know, that's the July 11th is the attestation. That's when you have your goals and you have your budget and you attest that they're aligned. The only part of the CEP that is very difficult and not recommended to change are those goals. So by July 11th, all schools should have those goals in place. The rest of the document can be adjusted in terms of the June 27th draft, and is adjusted based on new information and data, et cetera, but not those goals and the alignment. Superintendents are approving those goals July 25th. July and August, the district is going to give input and feedback, they call it, on iPlan for every school. Schools take that feedback into account. And right now, the deadline for finalizing the plans by superintendents is December 5th. And the districts are supposed to have their completed CEPs by the end of October. So that's the current deadline. As we know, these deadlines get adjusted depending on circumstances that come up, but that's the current structure that's in place. Everybody should be putting their monthly SLT information in the plan. As I've told you, you can't go back and do anything before April if you didn't do it. And hopefully everybody's putting it in going forward. That is there. The only part of the template per se, which does not become public, that is not out yet, is the progress monitor tool. What we have is period, the last period to put in, that is in the current template. The new academic year progress monitoring tool has not been issued yet, and there are some changes to it. That will be forthcoming probably over the summer. Maybe I haven't been given an exact time, but that's going to be forthcoming. And the old tool will be sunset, and the new one will be put in. That is basically all of my updates as quickly as I could do it. Any questions? And I was pleased to be in this room and participate in Jenny's parent coordinator meeting, and I reinforced the importance of supporting schools with the parents and the parent pieces in terms of SLTs and the PACS components as well. And I'm pleased. I'm sure they'll be very supportive as well. And I know that the district is on top of all of that. Questions, comments, folks?
I can just attest to the fact that you are an amazing resource, Gus. Thank you. I was first put in charge of the CEP as an AP. I think in 2007, you were all about it then and continue to be. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
There's some districts that want what they call office hours. My philosophy has always been, and I'm happy to do office hours, is that I know how busy principals are, and I know how busy schools are. I don't want people to have to adjust to my schedule. That's why I operate the way I have all of these years. I want to accommodate your schedule. So when you have a need, whether it's, and you might have experienced this as well, whether it's 9 to 5 or an evening or a weekend or whatever, unless I'm asleep, I try to get back to you. And I will assist 24/7 the best I can. If I don't know the answer, I'll contact Central and I'll try and get you the answer. That's the way I hope to operate until my last day.
Thank you so much, Gus. And just a couple of things in terms of the biennial review. It will lead to hopefully conversations around how we want to adjust the SLT training. I would much prefer, I know that we do these things on Zoom because it's easier. But I would love to even create a scenario where it's more of a breakout space where parents and staff can move from room to room. If it's a progress monitoring room, if it's a goal setting room, it breaks up just kind of the feel of, all right, here, he's going to go next and this person's next. And then it just kind of drags out. You don't necessarily get the same kind of practical feeling of it. So, we'll talk more about that in July, but I would much rather change that approach to make it more meaningful than just having people listen. And even with people listening, you hear feedback, thank you so much, and they said, do it in earlier rather than when we did it. He said this would have, that Adam Sandler line, this would have been helpful for me a few weeks ago, kind of thing. So making sure that we, wedding singer, in case anyone wants to know what, to do it as early on as possible so that everyone knows what it is that's expected of them. And the questions that you can ask, I mean, we don't ask things sometimes because we don't know what we should ask, as educators or parents inside of the space. So the sooner we can do that and the more kind of risk-free type of space to do that in, you're in a breakout room with other people, it's less challenging to do that than say, I'm going to come off a Zoom with 300 people listening, or even to enter into a chat. So more to follow on that, but I think it's a good opportunity for us.
We have a template design that we always make available to districts, but it's your training. The design is totally and emphatically up to you. You can design it any way you feel is the most effective. And we can do it multiple designs or different ways if you want to. It's up to you. And this DLT in collaboration with the district. So, going forward, think about it, see how you want to do things differently. And as long as I'm around, I'm with you, and I will get you whatever additional support you might need if you want to add something on that I'm unfamiliar with.
Thank you, Gus. Okay, Rob, anything CSA wise, and we'll go around the table.
Real quick, I just pointed out last time that I was going to the mayoral forum. It was every mayoral candidate was there, but something I want to point out, and when it comes to unions and voting, who you vote for is never tallied, right? That's never shared publicly. But the union that you are affiliated with, and the percent of union members that vote in the primaries is made public. So when a candidate is looking to see how those unions that advocate for children are voting, or if they vote at all, and how much attention they should pay to those groups, it's important that everybody votes in the primaries. It's something that is often ignored amongst the U of T and oftentimes DC 37 and also in CSA. So I don't think it's publicly known that these candidates can see 30% of U of T members voted in the primaries, or 40% of DC 37, or 50% of CSA. It's important that we all take this civic duty very responsibly and vote in the primaries, which is coming up very soon. And I'll say every candidate showed up at this forum, except for Andrew Cuomo, who zoomed in. That's just, I guess he's so used to that way of communicating. It was very easy to see him on that. But that's it. That's it for us. Just,
all right, thank you.
And summarizing seems to be going very well. No hiccups with scheduling and coverage. Everything has been figured out pretty well on my end.
And I know Rob mentioned last time just around class size. All of the schools are receiving notification around what that means in terms of the dollars and cents, the number of people that have applied. And, we're grateful that our buildings that did apply are going to be able to move forward with that in short order over the next couple of weeks, doing that hiring, scheduling their money and being prepared for next year. So that's underway.
It's a lot of hiring.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do the demo lessons and the hiring committees and scheduling. It's a lot, but we're happy to do it.
Yeah. And some certainly more than others. Some have 10 people to hire, some have 2. So it's all dependent on the school. But we're excited that we're able to move forward where we are as a district community in that. Okay, Deepak, anything that you want to share? Catherine, anything with Deepak wise?
Oh, when's the election?
So
It's next week, right? Yeah, it's the next meeting.
Deepak election.
25th. We might postpone the time. So usually we have the DPAC meeting at 6 to 7. We're gonna postpone it to 5 to 6 this time, only because Rachel has to catch a flight on that day and she has to facilitate the election.
But yeah, we have her in like 9 million meetings as all of you guys too.
So we're just gonna move it an hour, and then I'm gonna send out the notice 10 day.
Okay.
So at least they have 10 days.
Yeah, we have to give 10 days.
we're gonna, they need at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to think,
Today's
Yeah,
the
we're good. We're still good.
Like 2 weeks.
we need to remind.
Yeah, you're good, as
them,
long as you get it out.
They have to invite the current members and they have to remind the newly elected members. We might not have a lot of newly elected members, but we sent out the email on Friday to all the PCs, making sure all the schools have an election schedule. If they haven't had one by May, they need to schedule one in June as soon as possible. So that email went out.
Okay.
Yeah, Eden, anything CC?
So Wednesday is our award ceremony, starting at 7 p.m. If you're around and free, please feel free to join us. Right after that, we are actually having a special meeting in addition to hopefully vote on bylaws if I have enough people in person. But we also did just pass a resolution at our last meeting, in regards to 3K and pre-K and trying to push them into CBOs to make more room for classrooms in the schools. So that was something that came up. It passed unanimously by the CEC. We're sending in our recommendation. Who knows what comes from that, but we'll see. Other than that, we're waiting on election results. Hopefully, they said mid-month, so sometime this next week or so we should know, because the training for the new CEC members will be June 21st.
Awesome. Thank you much. DC 37?
So DC 37, I'm just gonna say that just in case some of these questions come to school secretaries or just to principals, there was supposed to be an increase on May 26th, 2025. The Department of Education pushed that back to June 20th. So it's the last increase of our contracts, 3.25%. The other, to piggyback off of Mr. Marino said, we are in full swing for the election. DC 37 has announced they are supporting Adrian Adams. Of course, we tell our members they can choose to vote for whoever they want. They feel that Adrian Adams is supportive of DC 37, its members, and the working families in the city of New York. We're actively door knocking and getting out the vote, signing people up, encouraging people to sign up to vote for the election. As far as I'll talk about Summer Rising, when it comes to parent coordinators, the Friday remote workday has been offered. It's come down from the Office of Labor Relations. It should have come down to superintendents. That's what we were told. It should have come down to principals. We are encouraging principals to please.
Summer or for the always?
For the summer, from
Okay.
July and August, for those 2 months, Friday remote work schedule. I'm sorry? Yes, it must be, it should be approved by the principal. So we're encouraging, administration to have those conversations, many parent coordinators, and I'm not saying this district specifically, but throughout the city, it's not getting to the parent coordinators somehow. So if we could get that word out to the principals to have those conversations with their PCs. Also, vacations, we want to make sure parent coordinators are approved for their vacations, and we hope that the administration and the Summer Rising administration is working together to collaboratively. We understand that there should be at least a parent coordinator in the building so that they rotate their vacations fairly on a fair basis. Also, school aides, there was a little discrepancy last year with a school aide being hired as a bus coordinator. Principal thought that they could offer them more money than what they technically were allowed to make. And so that person was very upset. There wasn't much that I could do about it because it goes based off of the contract. They were entitled to procession, which raises them above the rate that they had. But we just want to be mindful of checking with budgeting or whoever does the payroll before offering a certain amount, because some people give up their summer jobs if they think that they're going to be making more money within the school. And making sure that they are at a minimum of 4 hours, because contractually school aides work 4 hours. They can't work anything less than that. And also just encouraging just the hiring of school aides, because they do need some support staff in there for copies, for delivering materials and things like that. We've noticed a huge decrease in the hiring of school aides. We understand there's limited budget, but when you look at what school aides, especially new school aides, make an hour, it's $16 and maybe it's gonna go up to 70 cents an hour. They may get a little bit more than that. They get $18 an hour over the summer. So it's a small investment for an extreme amount of support for your summarizing programs. And I think that is it for me.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Monique.
thank you.
Yeah, and the things that our PCs have been great over the years at organizing themselves around, summer planning. So I don't know that we'll have too many issues with that. I think they're pretty good at sustaining that space of, being mindful of each other.
Yeah,
and
you have
not-
great
yeah,
PPs
so I'm not really
in
worried
the
about that.
district, so, yeah, it's just something we bring up because it came down from Office of Labor Relations.
Yeah,
We just
I
wanna
get why
make
you would
sure.
bring it up, 100%, yeah. Okay, the only thing, just to kind of, just mention with, Yeah.
Rachel?
yeah.
So on Monday, June 16th, we're gonna have the President's Council election coming up at 2 o'clock, via Zoom. So we're gonna be inviting all current members because they have to be there to vote, and we're gonna invite the newly elected members because they have to be there to run for a position. So that's gonna be Monday. And currently, we're still collecting all the PAPT election certification forms. That needs to be signed and dated by the principal. The principal is definitely, we need to have them at the district level as well. So we're asking for a copy. I've been reminding all the PCs and everyone is on top of it.
Okay. So just one thing with the resolution that I want to make sure that we kind of talk about, is, from my standpoint, selfishly, I want all of the kids in the district to be my kids in the district. When they go outside of this space, they're no longer mine or under my care or my supervision. So, that is one thing that would shift, is that children then become outside of my care. So selfishly in that space, that's just something that I would throw out there at you guys, just to be mindful of that. It no longer becomes the supervision of District 25 when that does happen. So I am
Pre-K
not,
centers though do.
pre-K centers do. Yeah, they are part of the district. Yeah, they are part of the district.
When
So-
families contact us, CBOs, we have to refer them to 311.
Yeah.
Because it makes it the provision of other child.
Yeah.
We can't.
So they still will be connected with their Division of Early Childhood, and I don't know what really comes from that space, but that's just something I do want to make sure that is clear to the team, is that, once other organizations take over, then it becomes outside of the district. And for me, I want all of our kids. I want them all to be part of this community, and part of pre-K is about being part of the community too. And that one thing starts getting removed, then it takes away a piece of the puzzle from the community. So just important for us to be mindful that would, if that were ever to become a scenario, that would be something that would take away from District 25 purview. Okay, new business.
Just add
Yeah.
one thing. So I know that you brought up the class sizes, they brought up the class sizes, and Dr. addressed it. I know that, with class sizes, some PCs, not saying in this district, but like citywide, their offices might be, there's a lot of moving pieces. And so we just want to make sure that they're not being moved into closet spaces where there is air, a window, circulation. Just because DC 37 does have a health and safety department. And so if I get any reports of anyone wanting to have the room checked out once they're placed in September, I have to have DC 37 health and safety come and check out the area that they're in. So just to be mindful that they're accessible to families, that they have a space where they can speak with families, and address any issues, just being mindful of what their role is when you place them. And I know it's a difficult decision because there's only so much space, but we just want to make sure that they're accessible to families and they're in a safe space.
Good time to point that out, because everybody's scrambling.
Yes.
So it's
To
good
find
that
their
you,
spaces.
yeah, it's good that you make that point.
All right, any new business?
The meeting date.
Oh, yes. So these are now some of you, I'm hopeful to see again during DLT. but these are meeting dates for next year, beginning in July. Just for you to have them, not necessarily for us to agree upon, just yet, but the first one would be Monday, July 14th. And we can come back to have this conversation. I know these are relatively loose over the summer in the sense that vacation schedules fall into play. We'll do the best that we can with it. If for some reason at the end of the year, you say, you know what, Mike, I'm not here, then we'll revisit when we can try to meet, but at least to get them on the calendar now. And if we have new parent groups, whether it's new president's council president or high schools, our own CC and so on, that we're all at least at the very least have them in our mind's eye, and then we can come to consensus on it in the July meeting. But these are them. We try to keep it consistent with what we've done this year on a Monday, typically same time, 9 o'clock to 11. And then we'll kind of go from there. All right, but not for us to necessarily review and say that stamp on them today, but just for you to have at your disposal. So when we come back together in July, hopefully, if we can't make it together in July, then we'll figure out. But just look at these over, and if there are any issues with any of the dates, just to have it kind of starred so that when we do come back together, we can make the adjustments necessary. If it on a date that shouldn't be, we can fix it. Okay. All right, guys, consensus to close. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was a great meeting. I appreciate all of you.
Good to see everybody. in
Yes, so
person.
great to see you. Enjoy the last 2 weeks. Yes, enjoy the last 2 weeks. Hard to believe. Enjoy your celebrations.
Not like I can run away. I'm still waiting on the results.